green tone that the Chicago River naturally has due to the carpet of algae that grows along the bottom of it. This is an example of architecture known as contextual postmodernism, where the building is not designed in a vacuum, but is inspired by outside sources, in this case, the river itself. A common motif in postmodern buildings are these reflective glass curtains. So as you look at the buildings, see other buildings reflected back at you. So directly in front of us is the Lake Street Bridge. This is one of two double-decker bridges that have L train tracks on the top of it. The L has been part of the fabric of Chicago since the 19th century. The 1893 World's Fair, 25 million people came to Chicago, and so the first L trains were built to bring folks down to the south side neighborhood of Jackson Park. On the other side of the next bridge to the large brick building with the ivy crawling up the side of it, this is the Great Lakes building from 1902. Another example of the Chicago School. Chicago School style doesn't have a lot of style, and that's the point. The form follows function philosophy. It's a rejection of the Beaux-Arts movement. Chicago School architects found Beaux-Arts to be tacky, dishonest. Why are we pretending like we're French or Greek or Roman when we're not? So there's a certain rugged Midwestern honesty at play with the Chicago School approach. No temples and turrets and griffins and urns. William O'Berenger perfected the steel frame skeleton and has hosted load-bearing fat walls with teeny tiny windows, steel frame skeleton, big windows. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'll tell you all about the site on our right on the way back from a different angle. But if you look up in the windows, that's what you look like on a boat. So there are railroad tracks to the right that glide underneath every single building as far as we can see right now. So the railroad companies, they were here first, they own the land. The buildings come later. They are built in through a financial arrangement known as air rights. So the buildings, they pay a rental fee every single year. Some of them have contracts 100 years long just to lock in a not so low price. So this is the Boeing building coming up here on the right. The Boeing building, 1992, originally built for Morton Salt. And this building has an engineering element that also is best viewed from the opposite direction. So I'll tell you more about this building on the return trip as well, the backtrack. But you have to go vertical in a city. You have to maximize your space. And a great example of multitasking is this throne-shaped building coming up on the other side.
Wave over.
Next bridge on the left. The Civic Opera Building, 1929. The revenue that comes in from the offices up on top help keep the ticket prices relatively low at the Opera House on the ground floor. So it's an office building on top, Opera House down below, 1929. The reason for the setback is because of the zoning ordinance put into place in the 1920s. Buildings over a certain height had to have a setback, so artificial canyons were inadvertently being created, blocking out the sun itself. The reason there's a wall to your left is because we're backstage. The reason building is spelled with a V is to be pretentious. Greek theater masks, garlands and wreaths, musical lyres and horns and torches, Gothic ornamentation on the exterior. The Lyric Opera of Chicago announced their intentions to simulcast project whatever opera is happening inside on the outside. That'll be really spectacular. We'll see how that works out in logistics. And the Lyric Opera, so they're inside. The theater has 3,000 seats, and they're going to be kicking off their season this fall with Wagner's Ring Cycle. The first performance was in 1929. It was Aida by Verdi, and it was 6 days after the stock market crash, which is relevant, actually. Loud Bridge. Because of the stock market crash, because of the Great Depression, World War II, there are no significant architectural movements for years. There's this whole black hole in the 20th century for architectural styles. And that's why in most United States cities you'll see this contrast between big, opulent, decorative buildings like the Opera House next door to office buildings of the 1950s, like you see here to the right. I'm actually going to focus on the right for the next 4 buildings. Black box, white box, green thing. These happen to be an excellent micro-tour of the evolution of the office building in the 20th century. The black box of the 1950s and 60s is known as the modernist style, and it's a style of architecture that's easy to take for granted. We all grew up with them. We all grew up with office buildings. We know what an office building looks like. But this is actually a very specific movement in architecture. The modernist style is also known as the Second Chicago School. It's the same concept. Steel frame skeleton, big windows, no extra ornamentation, form follows function. It's the tuxedo of buildings. Elegant, sophisticated, timeless, no extra ornamentations, intentional minimalism. Mies van der Rohe, German architect, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, came from the Bauhaus in Germany. He was the last director of the Bauhaus. Fled Nazi Germany, came to Chicago and taught here for 22 years at the Illinois Institute of Technology. He is so influential that he is an adjective. A black box office building can be called museum.